Welcome to the What Was Said podcast. Oh, I'm so glad you joined me. I'm Aria Lanelle, and this episode is about something very near and dear to my heart. It is my brand new single, Last Lovers, which features the incredible Durand Bernarr. That song is so special to me, and we'll get into that, more about that later. And the love that I have gotten, the love that we have gotten for this song, is almost overwhelming to a certain degree. Y'all hit like 10,000 listens almost before like 2 weeks was up, real talk. And it's kind of the fastest kind of streamed single and the most, I don't know, like y'all just love it so much, just as much as I love the song. And that makes me really excited to share more about the process of this track that has been my baby since college, actually. I hope that you enjoy this episode and that you learn something. Maybe you're inspired, or maybe, it's just something that brightens your day. Either way, I hope you enjoy the making of Last Lovers. I wrote Last Lovers in college. I've always been a romantic, and at that time I was really frustrated because I wasn't seeing anyone else who wanted love as much as I did. I was hearing a lot of, you're too young, you should just go out there and just experience, and just be out there, just, almost like have a hoe phase, essentially. And I wasn't built like that. And there's no shade to anybody else, but for me personally, I've never been built like that. And this song was kind of me being frustrated and making a plea, like, am I really the last lover out here? Like, is there anybody else out here besides me who wants something substantial, who wants a deeper connection, who wants more than just, I don't know, raw bodily physical activity, I've always kind of been a little intense in that way. And so I remember I wrote the lyrics and then I went into a practice room up at my alma mater, Berkeley. And I got in front of that little piano and I just kind of plunked out the chords that fit, and it just kind of came to me. When I write my songs, like the really, really good ones, like it's almost like I'm possessed. So half the time, I don't even remember what happens. It's like my hands can't play the notes fast enough. My hands can't write the lyrics fast enough. I always feel like songs come through me. They're not really from me. They're through me almost, it feels like, like God gives them to me, and, like I'm just that vessel, that conduit, to express that. So after I kind of came out of that trance, I looked at what I had created and I was like, oh, there's something here. And so this was about the time I was working on my first EP, Ultra Girl. And this song actually didn't make the cut for that EP. And I sat on it, right? I had done session for it and everything. Our favorite song is on. I'll be close enough. It doesn't last for just us two, and I wonder What you just heard was me back in 2014 in college with my friend Nam, kind of sketching out how the arrangement should go in the studio at the time. It was fresh, it was raw, it was real, and it really had like Etta Jamesy type vibes because that was what I was pulling from, right? So let's fast forward now to 2020. The theme of, I would say, 2020 was like that longing for human connection and that desire to touch and to be touched and to love and to be loved. You know, there were so many pandemic babies that were made that year. But then also for like the single ones, you know, there was so much longing and loneliness, feeling alone. And so I reached back into my vault for Last Lovers, and I was like, you know, this kind of fits it. Like low key, the lyrics kind of felt a little apocalyptic if you look at it. Where it's almost like I'm saying like the whole world is going crazy. You know, I might be the last lover, or we're the last lovers in the world. Like there's nothing else, essentially. And so the safety of this room is where that love resides, because out there in the world is shenanigans that neither of us can control. And it just fit, right? It absolutely just fit. And so I produced, like, I pulled it out and I reproduced the track in like a newer version. I, you know, laid down the keys and pads and did some drum programming. I reached out to Michael Christman for guitar and Max Spinelli for bass. And once we had like a good rough track going, I reached out to Durand. And I really wasn't expecting for Durand to even be checking for the track or get back to me, but he did. And I'm so thankful that he did, because he added such a beautiful, beautiful balance to the song. And I'm forever grateful for that. In fact, you can hear it in his words.
I hadn't been sent something that nostalgic. So I was like, well, let me tap into that, because yeah, we haven't been we don't really have music that you can slow dance to. Just to kind of just like, let's throw a curveball in here real quick. So I'm like, I'll be in on that. We'll tap in.
So when Durand accepted, you know, being on the track, there was something he told me that he wanted to do for me when he recorded his portion, and it was to help me find the pocket. He wanted to use his vocal performance to help me find the pocket. And I'll have him explain a little bit more about that.
So when I mean by pocket, it's a certain so when you have your BPM, you know, your tempo, it's like you're staying right on time, but like a little bit behind, so you can kind of ride the beat. And I'm a stickler for like, because even though I love rap, even though I don't consider myself a rapper, but my pocket is kind of like a drummer. And also, if I was an instrument, I would be the bass. Just for the note choices, the resonance that you how it resonates with you. And also, when you hear the bass, you never feel sad.
See, that little insight, like he wanted to kind of kid in that vibe of like the bass almost. And that insight, like when you hear the bass, you never feel sad. That was so fascinating to me, especially since the bass is literally my favorite instrument in the world. My favorite instrument is the bass. And I found Durand's vocal approach really unique and special for Last Lovers. So I wanted to know who inspired him and what kind of did he pull from for his delivery with Last Lovers.
Pulling from, you know, Luther and, you know, Rick will splash out. You know, and of course, when I do something, and I'm not even trying to be perfect with the falsetto, that's definitely tapping into Prince.
See, when Durand mentioned that he referenced Rick James to some degree in his vocal approach, like I was so giddy kind of about that because Rick James is so underrated for his vocal performances. Like, it's almost like people see Rick James as like a meme or, like a F your couch, or cocaine is a hell of a drug. You know what I mean? Like that kind of energy. But they completely overlook kind of why we even knew of Rick James, which was like his genius in all of the music that he did, but also his vocal performances were so idiosyncratic. They were so unique and they just stuck with you in the way that he did things. I would kind of hear his vocal touches. Maybe this is just me being weird, but I kind of even hear like bits and pieces of Rick James in like Morris Day from the Times, like vocal approach to ballads, if you really think about that. So to like have that level of like musical history kind of embedded in Last Lovers even further, on Durand's side was so fire to me, just so fire. So after Durand's amazing vocal performance was laid down, I decided I wanted strings. And I reached out to one man, Hunter LaMar, for my strings. So Hunter LaMar is the homie. We went to Berkeley together. Like we've kind of like been around each other's musical circles for like years. And I always admire his kind of genius that he approaches each kind of work that he, works on essentially. And I knew he was the person that I wanted to tap for the strings, specifically. So we discussed the strings and everything like that. And he came up with this amazing arrangement. Like he was so inspired that he literally was just obsessed and working on it like ASAP. Like as soon as I contracted him, he was just like, no, I'm on this. And I was blown away even from just, like the little, like, I want to say finale, the little score in finale. I was blown away from that. And so I was like, okay, this is dope. So, he found the string players during 2020, mind you, right? The summer of 2020 at that. Like, there were so many riots going on, for Black Lives Matter. But then there was also COVID was just like, woohoo, like going just tap dancing. It's still tap dancing to a certain degree through the world. But it was just really, we were all in that really what is going on. It feels like the end of the world type of energy. So the fact that Hunter was able to think and function through like all of that craziness to deliver like amazing music and to bring together a group of people, albeit like virtually, like remotely. I don't know, that's just something that's really special and a testament to his skill set. And so that was 2020, right? So we're currently in 2022. This song came out in 2022. And so there have been so much that went on that precluded the release of this song. And, Hunter was always like pressing me like, yo, when it's coming out, when it's coming out, when it's coming out. And so he's been kind of like walking alongside me with this kind of track through the process. And yeah, so we talk about it actually.
My God, like it's been 3,000 years since like we've been doing Last Lovers and talking about it, and you've been nudging me like, hey, so when it's coming out? Hey, when it's coming out?
I just wanted to know. I trust the process, but I did want to know.
I mean, it's real. Like, it's just, I don't know what it was. It's just like, it feels like it's been taking so long to like do the groundwork for it. Like, because it's like, it's a dope song, in my opinion, that, whoever's listening to this, in the future, they may or may not agree, but I think it's a dope song. And I don't know, you got to do things right sometimes. And I wanted to make sure that I'm just out here doing things like right. So at least it has a shot.
There's a lot of artists who will put out the best song you've ever heard, and then no one will hear it. So, like, you're doing it right, and there's nothing wrong with waiting. You don't take a chicken out the oven before it's full, before it's ready. So
you're right. When you first heard it, like when it was just a dry run through, and like I was just telling you, yo, I have this song that I'm working on. Would you do some strings for it? And you heard it, like what, like out the gate, like just black and white. If you can't remember, like what was your like first thought?
like working on the song, I was like, okay, I hear exactly where this is going. You know, I knew every like. Sometimes when when I'm commissioned to do an arrangement, I have to sit with it for a while and think and like maybe spend a day just listening to it on repeat, taking walks and saying, all right, what ideas do we need? What can go here? It was very easy with Last Lovers. I didn't need to take any time because the direction made itself very clear to me from the get-go. It's a song that is very assured of who it is, if that makes sense. And it had so much character when you gave it to me that I didn't actually have to work that hard because I didn't have to go on a discovery process. I was just able to say, okay, here are my options. Here's where it's going. I need to just follow that, you know?
Like, how do strings come to you? Like, you know, like how do you kind of like hear it in your head? Like, what was the vibes?
So my approach to string arranging is to first get to the root of the song and what is the song about? What is it trying to accomplish? Where is the tension? Where is the arc? You know, where's the story being told? And Last Lovers is to me like very obviously romantic. You know, it is which to me it's a very sweet. It's a 6/8 ballad. You know, so the first thing that I said is like, all right, we need these strings to create a bed. We need them to create sweet textures. And that was kind of the direction that I went in. And then also I wanted there to be romance between the parts. You know, I wanted there to be movement that was very obvious. So when you get to these lines like da 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 da, you know, there's a rise and there's a fall right there that is very easy for anyone listening to like just sit into. And then also the two people who played violin on it happened to be dating, and I put a lot of improv in there for them. Where I was just
I
like,
didn't know that.
Yeah, I was like, for these two bars right here, you guys just to make sure that you record this in the studio together. You don't have to record it at the same time. Just make sure you do it together and record whatever feels right in that moment, you know?
Yes.
And then I said, my goal for y'all is to experience the romance in the same way that you're playing it. So a lot of the actual lines that end up being played are by two people who are in love with each other, you know? And that comes through in their playing, which is fortunate. So that was really the biggest goal, is to make sure that all of the romance, all of the sweetness was authentically captured. And then also I added pizzicato because I like it.
Period. Like, okay. I had no clue. You just like dropped this bomb on me. Like, I had no clue. Like, yes, like, I think you can hear that. Like, personally, you know, I could hear, like, it sounded like there was a conversation. And so, like, for you to kind of express that you told that to them in, you know, was like, yo, I want you guys. And this was during COVID, so it was remote. So like nobody was like really in person except like the people that were there, right? I'm wrong?
Yeah. They lived together and recorded it in their home studio.
So like that type of interplay, like I think is like dope. And like, if there's one thing I really love about Last Lovers is that I feel like everyone involved felt some type of love during like it, you know, like it just felt like everyone was, I don't know, conjuring up their most lovely emotions in the song. And like, it's one of my favorite, I think, pieces that I've ever produced, worked on, written, sang, whatever, because of the sheer energy of everyone else involved. It's like, I can feel y'all's energy in it. as well. And that's what makes it so vibrant. It's more than me. It's more than Durand. It's everyone, the sum of the parts, making it like a really dope like situation. So I don't know. I'm just standing. It's my song and I'm over here standing. Anyway, but like
As you should.
And then we kind of had a little side discussion about the importance of being patient with yourself on your artistic journey, and how you shouldn't rush things and you shouldn't feel as though you're running out of time. And I want to share a little bit of that with y'all.
I started thinking of all the artists that exist, even just today, whose careers did not become what they are for a number of years up to decades, you know? They say all these overnight successes, that's not a real thing. Lizzo's first song came out in like 2011.
Yeah.
You know?
Was it like Batches and Cookies or something?
And now she didn't really pop. Like the big songs came out in 2017 and then didn't really pop off for her like that until a whole year after that, you know?
Yeah.
Future didn't even like have an EP out until he was like in his 30s. So
God.
Big fan.
I was literally just listening to Dirty Sprite 2 yesterday morning. Like I brought in New Year's listening to Dirty Sprite 2. Like just anyway, that's a side note, but yes.
We'll never have an issue with taking time to do things right, you know? And it will always be a better attack. It'll always be a better product if you put your all into it. I do think that it's very easy for us to not ever let things be finished. You know, and that is the other side of this double-edged sword, where we have to learn when to relinquish and when the art is when it no longer belongs to us and when it belongs to the world. But there's nothing wrong with meticulously discovering that process, and that will be a different journey for everyone. Randy Newman's "You Got a Friend in Me" was written in. He wrote that in one day. You know?
Wow, okay.
So it's just whoever you are and what you want to do with your music, that is the decision that you should be making. And whatever time that takes, I think that you just got to lean into it, you know?
That's real. Thank you. Like, thank you for those words. Look at the wisdom. See, this is why I work with you. This is why we cool peoples, because like there's so much like wisdom, I think, upstairs that's not just like, oh, haha, this is a Mixolydian.
So we had like a really dope discussion about so much that you just heard. And then after that, I wanted to get the perspective of the person responsible for pretty much gluing the track together, essentially, after all of that work from everybody. And I had the lovely opportunity to chat with Tyler Scott, who mixed Last Lovers, and just really get his perspective on his approach to the track, but also just kind of like his approach in general to mixing, and kind of nerd it out for a little bit. And here's that. Okay, so I don't know if you know this, but the reason that I definitely wanted to work with you was because I feel like, and like, chime in here if I'm like wrong, but I feel like sometimes in the industry there's like a bias because it's the most, biggest selling thing, at least in the urban market, for engineers to mostly know how to work with like male rap vocals in a sense. So sometimes in my personal experience, I felt like folks haven't necessarily known how to like treat female vocals like in a way that's not like oversaturating them in like pitch correction or like sucking the humanity essentially out of them. And I had like kind of followed your work, like seeing your work that you've done consistently with vocalists like who actually can sing, and I was like, okay, there's like a light touch, there's not, it doesn't feel like you're trying to, force the vocals to be what they're not in that sense. Like, and plus I also felt like, look, if it's good enough for Beyonce, what it's her world and we're living in it. So
That's fine.
what is your kind of like perspective? Like, this is the nerd part of like the episode. Like, what is your like perspective kind of about like vocals, and like, am I like reading that wrong, that you kind of like have that touch for like female vocals?
I think for me, the biggest thing I try and achieve from my mixes is that I want there to be like a sense of freedom, a sense of kind of ease, and not like it's an overly processed thing. Like there should be a bit of naturality isn't necessarily a word, I don't think. But
I mean, I get it though.
Like there should be an essence of like naturalness and like not over compressed, not overly processed. And so now for somehow it wasn't necessarily by design. I just happened to work with a ton of female vocalists. So even more so than like, definitely, I definitely work with singers more than I do rappers. Just kind of happened that way. And so me loving R&B, loving gospel, loving even country and other genres that are primarily singing based, not necessarily rap based. Love rap too, but I just, all these different things. And coming from a jazz background myself as a jazz musician, I always try and figure out how can I keep the dynamic of a vocal, of a performance, and then let the music support that underneath. So hopefully that kind of comes through in my work. It's just kind of, I feel like it's just kind of how I naturally hear things and like things to feel like. Hopefully when I'm able to kind of get it to that point, it feels right to me. So I'm glad you like it.
I think I can definitely hear like those sensibilities, like your care for those respective genres. Like I know like when like, okay, we're skipping ahead here almost, but like when I first heard like the rough, for reference, I am really nitpicky about my mixes naturally, like normally. Like I was nitpicky with you because I didn't have to be because your ears are amazing. And no shade, no tea, no shade to nobody else, anything like that. But I usually like, it'll be like, I want to say like a big old page and it'll be like minute 56 seconds. Like, I don't know if I like that. Can you take the breath out? Or like, it'll just be kind of like borderline nitpicky about kind of those things. And when like I heard the rough, wasn't even like the polished one, but just the first pass, like I was like, okay, there it is. Like it felt like you understood kind of the references that like we both, like me and Durand, like vocally were going for, as well as like the feel of the musicians. And it felt like, and the feedback I've been getting as well is that people are like, the track feels, it harkens back to like old school R&B, but it has a modern touch to it. And I would like to think that the modern touch to it is like from those nuances in the mix that keep it from sounding like something from like 1985 or something like that, which it could easily have kind of gone into. So with that being said, like what was your first impression like when I like sent you like the little ugly little rough of Last Lovers?
No, I mean, my first impression was that based on that rough that you provided, like, okay, I hear what you were going for, right? I listened to what's your intention behind certain effects, where you're placing levels against other things. Like, take a listen to that. It's like with every mix that I do, like I usually will sit and listen to the reference and the roughs and whatever it is you send me a couple of times, then play what the files sound like a couple of times and figure out what that intention is that you set. Because most of the times in the types of records that I get, people have worked on these things for who knows how long. Could have been months, years, whatever. And so they've got to the place to where it's technically like mixed, right? There's a intention built into it. There's a certain level of care that's been gone through. So it's not on me to necessarily go through and say, hey, no, you're wrong, and I'm going to do my thing. Like, no, I'm not making my record. I'm making your record, right? So I want to listen to what you provide me and lay up and then say, okay, now how can I expand upon this? How can I kind of finish this out, bring the last 20, 30% or whatever to what this record needs, and kind of give it that sort of finished sound. So, as far as your record, like you had all the things kind of laid out. You had the vibe, some of the references and things that you give. It's been a little bit, so I'm kind of trying to remember back when we were working on it. But yeah, I just remember it's like, okay, I can kind of hear a little bit of this like Prince kind of vibe you have in there, but then there's also like this soulful kind of Southern, like slight Anthony Hamilton kind of thing going on. So how can I give this like warm, soulful feeling thing with a nice kind of clear, interesting upfront vocal? Part of that kind of gives it the modern sort of feeling, right? Kind of that placed against where the vocal to kick level balance is. That's kind of like where that sort of modern sensibility comes in. And kind of size of the kick, how much it takes up to, like, is it going to go deep into like the sub frequencies or maybe place it a little higher. So those are the kind of things I was thinking of. Like I said, you all did a great job of just kind of like showing me where you wanted it to go and try to just finish it up.
Thank you. Like, I think I definitely felt that care too, because like, like I produced the track, so like sometimes it can, like, especially like as a female producer, I can feel like almost like people think, oh, she's a female producer, so I'm not going to take seriously her choices necessarily. I don't trust those choices because like she's a girl or something like that. So I genuinely did feel like, oh, there's like respect for like the vibe here. Like, this is super cool. And so I do remember also you asked me like, hey, I want to try something. I want to experiment kind of with something like a vocal approach or like something that you wanted to try on it. And I was totally cool with it. And it turned out making it like really unique and really special, which I enjoyed. And like I practically wore the record out to the point where I got tired of hearing it, like even more so than for recording it. So like there was that, there was that kind of sensibility to it. So yeah, like, I don't know. I'm just really grateful. I'm so thankful that you and everybody else was like really a part of it. It really felt like a beautiful kind of like, I don't know, like a bouquet. Like everybody was a flower and had their part kind of in the bouquet of making Last Lovers what it was. And that, my friends, is the making of Last Lovers. I'm so grateful that you joined me for this kind of behind the scenes look at the creation of one of my favorite songs ever. And I'm so thankful for everyone who joined me today, talking with me about its creation, from Durand to Hunter to Tyler. I'm just so grateful. And I'm grateful to everyone, all of the musicians and engineers and everyone who was a part of the creation of Last Lovers. I hope as well that Last Lovers inspires you to send somebody some love today. Just, the world could always use a little bit more love, and that's my wish for you, is to just, spread a little bit more. So I'm Aria Lanelle, and I wrote and produced Last Lovers, and this is me signing out of the What Was Said podcast, Last Lovers edition.